I hear the train a-comin'. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling. All down the line, all down the line. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with a gun. I hear the train a-comin'. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling. All down the line I go. All down the line I go. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with a gun. I hear the train a-comin'. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rolling. All down the line I go. All down the line I go. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with a gun.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is kiodiekin. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show, tonight's little chat. We've got a special guest who's always welcomed here on the show, very insightful and whatnot. So we're going to cover several different topics tonight. What's going on, Carl O? And no, I have not touched the Xbox dev mode for emulation. I'll pick up one of those, though. We're going to talk about tonight, we have the Raspberry Pi 5, the shortage. I know a lot of you have ordered early. You still haven't gotten those. Then we also have the Pi 5 versus the mini PC situation, the cost and what you can expect to emulate. Pi 5 situation resembling the Xbox 360 launch, mini PCs dominating, ARM versus x86, and how can we obtain perfect emulation on these Pi devices or single board computers? Costs are going up. And it's still just not there, whether it's sound missing, stuttering, whatever the case might be. We're going to talk about all of it. In fact, we're even going to talk about some of these companies that we ordered from that are still backlogged and still haven't shipped us our stuff. So without further ado, welcome Mr. Glenn Baisley. We have him back.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect, man. So how's your day been? How's your Thanksgiving?
Good. Yours?
It was great. You know, family came over, wife cooked, and her dad, so they love, cooking. My father-in-law is a chef, so
Oh, that's great.
yeah, so I can't lose weight for anything.
Yeah, I know. I went up, I think, at least like 5 pounds. So there's still too many desserts. There's so much food that was left over, and I'm like, I'm staring at it. I'm like, this is not a good thing because I'm just eating everything in sight.
So true, definitely true. So I was just talking to Glenn as we were sitting here. Actually, I was sitting here playing a little bit around with some of the cloud gaming features on the Raspberry Pi 5. It's pretty cool, pretty fun. I was just taking a look at some of the specs and everything that it has to offer. I need to finish my comparison. I should probably have that up by this weekend because there's certain things that I definitely want to test. But will I be buying an RK3588 handheld? Who knows? Who knows what the future may hold? Who knows what it'll have to bring us? But Glenn, tell us, what are your thoughts on the Raspberry Pi 5 right now, the release, and your personal experience? Because I know you also pre-ordered too. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I had one pre-ordered, and I think with the accessories, with the case and the power pack on it and everything, you're looking around. My order through Pi Shop US was like $147, right? And you and I had
Right,
discussed and have been discussing, that's the debate tonight about mini PC versus these single board computers. And I already owned a Minisforum UM690, which is one of the higher pack. I mean, the price I paid for it, yeah, you could get a pretty decent PC, but I went with it because of just the form factor, the portability of it,
of
things about
course.
maybe the size of a Roku. But I've been looking for another one for some small projects, and now with Black Friday and Cyber Monday, I started looking at these prices, and you turned me on to the one that we're going to talk about, or I think you're going to show tonight. If I'm pronouncing this right, the Camarui,
Right.
and the price of what I paid for it is the same as what I had ordered the Pi 5 for.
Yep.
So I went ahead and I canceled my order. And it was part of it out of frustration, but also it just doesn't seem realistic anymore after I've got my hands on and really played around with one of these mini PCs. Like, wow, obviously it's outperforming what you could do on these single board computers. But not only that, just the sheer frustration that every other week I was getting an email saying, "Yeah, it's coming soon. Oh no, no, you're ready to ship out. Oh no, it's been delayed another week." Oh, and that
Right.
morning, the morning I canceled it, the latest email came saying, "Well, we're just fulfilling our orders for the first wave, and now the ones with the larger memory are going to go out a little later." But as you and I discussed, in some cases you can walk into stores and buy them. So how are they allocating these things? What's going on with single board computers? I just kind of just got so fed up with the whole thing. I said, you know what? Just give me my money back.
Yeah. So here was my frustration with what happened. Uh, well, you know what? Let me see. Do I have these screenshots? I think I have them up here. I want to show them to you because I think if you see these screenshots, it paints a bigger picture here. Um, because I was curious, like, what was the rush? I mean, Pi 4s weren't available in stock, and then to make an announcement of the Pi 5s, and then the stores or the resellers didn't have them in stock. They were like, "Oh, there's going to be a delay. We're actually getting them shipped to us." When originally we were told that they will be available on the 23rd. That was not true. Got
Right.
an email from Pi Hut the following day, October 24th, the day after release, stating that the items were being shipped to them. For example, some of the other stores like Canikin or whatever, some of them are still taking orders. They haven't actually sold any, as far as I know. Right. So that's what I was told. So I'm saying to myself, like, what was the rush? So I started to look up ARM. I wanted to find out if ARM or any of these entities were publicly traded companies, because there has to be some type of business incentive to it. And a lot of the reviews, I would say some of the reviews that I've noticed, they really didn't talk negatively about the Pi in terms of, or I wouldn't say negatively, but really keep an open mind about how it performs next to the Orange Pi, for example. You would have people showing videos where stuff was a little bit stuttering, a little bit laggy. It didn't perform the same way. We'll talk about this a little bit later because I've noticed instant differences between, let's say, the cloud gaming aspect of the Raspberry Pi 5 versus the Orange Pi 5. And so just little things that you would see. So at any rate, I started to say, well, gee, is something going on here? Is this a publicly traded company where they don't want any bad press? So I looked it up, and finally I saw that ARM went public on September 14th. So as you guys know, Sony invested into the the Pi Foundation. So you have some big money going there. They also manufacture all their boards for them. ARM went public September 14th. And then lo and behold, September 28th, the Pi Foundation makes an announcement that the Pi 5 is coming out. So obviously that would increase the profitability from a stock margin percentage on the ARM franchise. So I want to see if I can pull it up because I took those screenshots here and it had those articles of just kind of painting out a picture. I think I posted them on my Facebook too. Let's see here. Well, here's one. This is one here. Sony backs maker of Tiny Pi computers with fresh funding access. Raspberry Pi receives strategic investment from ARM, further extending long-term partnership. So this article was written on November 2nd, but however, ARM didn't go public until September 14th. And then 14 days later, the Raspberry Pi 5 is announced. And so,
yeah.
Anyway, I think there's some tomfoolery going here. I'll let some of the other people look into it. But again, I just think that this was positioned in a way from a stock margin percentage versus actually being ready for consumers, because they had all the time in the world to create 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, whatever it might be, and have them ready. I don't see the point in releasing an item just to have people. You won't be able to get them until like maybe February, March, April, or March of next year. So, and then Pi Hut sent me a message. One of the emails saying, "Oh, well, you're in batch 1 or you're in batch 2," but they never tell you what exactly a batch is. So imagine pre-ordering. Right. I pre-ordered 45 minutes after the announcement. I did my live stream. You guys saw me. I was here telling you guys where to buy them, and then October 23rd, people are walking in the Micro Center who never heard about the Pi 5, just picking them up. Other people order directly from other websites, saying, "Hey, I think I was order number whatever." They ordered theirs pretty fairly. They still haven't received theirs. And then, how many are they getting a week? Is it 100? Is it 50? Is it 25? Is it 200? Like, what is a batch? Because in my mind, a batch would be 200, and once you have 200, your second batch would then be whatever arrives next. But I believe what they're doing is they have so many different batches and people in different order numbers. None of this is just being explained. And so my second order that I had with the Pi 5, I canceled it. I was like, you guys told me I was number first batch. Now they said second, which still wouldn't have shipped out until late November or December, or possibly January. There's no time frame on it. And when you could just easily go to, let's say, Parallax or some of these other websites, or maybe even walk into Micro Center and just pick one up. So that's kind of the scope on that, and that's kind of what happened to me.
I think that in the case of like Micro Center or some of these retailers, they're buying larger allocations and they're getting first dibs on it, which is not necessarily fair to the community, especially for people who have jumped on the bandwagon right away and placed their orders. But I mean, we've seen that kind of thing happen, as you and I discussed offline earlier, dating back to consoles with pre-orders, where, you'll get a lot of these sites now, just like the retailers used to do. They'll sell more than what they actually get.
Right.
And that's part of the problem too. And they won't actually tell you what the allocation is they're getting. And then some of the larger stores or larger sites are getting the stuff before some of the other sites. So there's really no way to tell, I don't think. But I think the biggest source of frustration for the consumers is the fact that, it does seem like a lot of these sites are placing orders without telling you the time frame that's really expected, and they're taking more reservations than they can actually handle capacity for.
Right, and we talked about this. So I don't know if you guys remember 2005 Christmas season before Thanksgiving, the Xbox 360 came out. I think it came out the end of October of 2005. And so what happened was GameStop took on more pre-orders that they could actually handle. And I know this whole concept is still kind of talked about. A pre-order doesn't mean you get it first, whatever the case might be. But what happened was at GameStop was people ordered for months at GameStop, ordered the Xbox 360s. And they were fulfilling pre-orders, I think, up until the summer of 2006. And people were frustrated because they're like, well, why did we have to pre-order? You guys hold our money when Toys R Us, Best Buy, Target, other stores had some available. Yet you guys are still taking pre-orders. So at that time period, I know GameStop would take thousands upon pre-orders. They didn't have a limit. And so I believe it was sometime after that. I think it was a class action lawsuit. Something happened, but it prohibited them from having to do pre-orders. If you go to any GameStop now, they can't take the pre-orders like they used to. They can only take 50, 25, whatever they know they're going to get. And so that just really caught my attention with what some of these companies are doing, resellers are doing for the Raspberry Pi 5. It's like they're just taking an endless amount of pre-orders without having any type of idea about how many they're actually getting, and are they able to fulfill those within a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, it's I think it's got to the point now where there's going to be a big challenge, right? Because you look at the timing of single board computers, like we said, versus mini PC, and I think that in the case of the Pi 5, there's so much more competition now in this generation that not only that, I'm sure they've been watching that as they got into the holiday season, where there's also a lot of people who buy it aside from just people that are doing modding and things like that and projects.
Right.
Of course, they make good holiday gifts, things like that. But I think that they're also acutely aware of the fact that, as you approach Black Friday and Cyber Monday, that the prices of these mini PCs are really starting to drop more and more and more. And something tells me it wasn't just a matter of, strategic partnerships, but it was also the fact that, the writing is on the wall for these, and that they rushed it to market to try
Yeah.
and beat the plummeting prices of mini PCs for the holiday season, and probably brushed it out prematurely because, as we're seeing, not everybody's getting these things into their hand. They don't have the abundancy that they seem to imply.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We weren't expecting a Pi 5. We were fine with walking into Micro Center or looking on the website, seeing Pi 4 is out of stock. That was the
Yeah.
thing. We got used to it. So to come out with the device, and they did something they normally don't do, because normally I think when they make the announcement, the item is in the store. This time they made a special
Right.
announcement, and then a month later it was supposed to be in the store, or resellers were supposed to have it. They didn't have it when they thought they were supposed to have it, because they didn't get it till like a few days later. But at any rate, to create that sense of urgency, and then of course none of the pies were on sale. It was like it's not like it was a Black Friday,
Yeah.
promo item. I mean, they could have waited. They could have waited to stock up on
Right.
several 100,000, whatever the case might have been, and then make their announcement. Because even right now, you can't even find accessories for the darn thing.
Yeah, that's the other problem, right? You get it and you can't. It's a crapshoot with the accessories.
Yeah, the power supply that I wanted the black one because it blends in with my entire electronics and my decor. That's not available until about March, as far as I know. So, I mean, and then when I was at Micro Center, I was like, you know what, screw it, give me the active cooler. I better grab that, because when I ordered my first Raspberry Pi 5, I didn't put that in there because I just wanted to hurry up and add something to the cart. And then I grabbed my power supply too, but they're out of stock now. I mean, you can't really find any of those. And so even if you get your Raspberry Pi 5, there's another slim chance you won't be able to find the active coolers, which are required, and you're not supposed to interchange those. I know some people were asking about, can you interchange it, put a different cooler on it? And you can. Just try not to attach that one first or move it multiple times. But that thing is $80, but really in a sense it's $85, because you need to have the active cooler with the Raspberry Pi 5. So that's an included cost of $5 more. Is needed. It should have came with it.
Yeah, well, that's something I don't understand too, is why, and even, I mean, some of the accessories, the way they just sell a kit that has everything in it,
Right.
instead of doing a la carte, and then you're trying to hunt down the accessories.
Yeah, and then and then when you start looking at the prices of what they have on CanaKit, and they're not the only website, but they created a full bundle. They have the whole thing where it's like $150, $29, whatever the case might be. But the point being is, it's the same cost. Like when I used to walk into Micro Center, sometimes I would go down there and say, hey, I can't think of what I'm going to get today. I'm here, so let me just grab something. I'll just grab another pie. I'm not going to do that anymore, because before that was like $55 for a Raspberry Pi 4 4 gigabyte model, where now the cost is $80. And I have plenty of power supplies around, that I could kind of intermingle that would work with it. But the costs have definitely gone up now to at least the $100 $120 price range.
Yeah.
And that cost is including, and then of course now we'll get into emulation a little bit, but we have these rising costs. And then for us who are in the gaming community, we do a lot of retro gaming. The performance value isn't initially there as soon as you plug it in. And I had that issue
Right.
too with the Orange Pi 5. To some extent, you want to plug it in and see instant power, instant gratification, instant optimization. Like, hey, I went from $55 to $127. This one had 4 cores. This one now has 8. Better GPU. Like, give it to me. Like a Nintendo 64 emulation better run at full speed. And then you still kind of get the same performance. And so I think that's the other frustrating part with some of us is knowing how much work have to be invested to get something optimized where you can still just buy a mini PC for the same cost.
Well, look how long it took to really get, for the Pi 4 to hit its stride. It was quite a while to get to where it is today.
Right.
So, and that's the thing, right? Yeah, if you're getting a mini PC right out of the box, you could either do cloud gaming, or you could put in a Batacera build or a Retrobat build, or just drop in a CoinOps build that somebody's uploaded to a site like Arcade Punks or Steam games, So there's a lot more versatility with it, and especially with onboard graphics. I mean, hell, I'm running stuff with Parrot off the mini PC that I have.
Yeah, definitely. Let me pull up. So what did you cancel your order for? I know you mentioned that you canceled your Pi.
Well, it inadvertently got canceled. I ultimately was going to cancel it, but the funny part about it is, and this is even just more frustrating, is after, ordering this thing since September, still not receiving it.
Right.
I started looking at the prices. And so I sent an inquiry that basically said, hey, I'm considering canceling my order. Is it too late to cancel it if I wanted to? And then I just got back a thing. You're now refunded back to PayPal. And I'm like, what? Like, well, I guess that made my decision. So I mean, I decided I was going to do it anyway before I got the email. But I'm like, wow. I'm like, that just annoyed me, even though I was going to cancel it anyway.
Wow. I want to pull up something really quickly. Let's see. So I haven't ran any of my tests just yet, but this is a comparison. If you guys are familiar with Geekbench, just to give you I mean, I'm not saying all these numbers are perfect, but just so you guys have an idea or range about what it is you're investing into. So on Geekbench 6, the CPU for the Raspberry Pi 5 registers somewhere at 766, 870, 889, 890, so forth. You guys get the numbers here. You guys see the drastic numbers in the performance of the single board computer. And then, of course, we look at multi-core score, 1514, 1636, 1667, 784, 1577. Now, however, we'll look at some of my recent test results, and I want to show you that this is the UY2 X86 or the X1 single board computer. Ran these results myself. Registers at 489, multi-score 1399. So I want you guys to understand just a little bit of the frustration that goes on. This board costs as much as, if you get everyone, 127, about as much as the Orange Pi 5 and as much as the Raspberry Pi 5 when you fully add in everything. It has the M.2 slot, eMMC storage. However, it's not as powerful as the Orange Pi 5. In fact, the Orange Pi 5 and the Raspberry Pi 5, in terms of this score, is twice as powerful. However, it's x86. But guess what? Guess what, Glenn? Out of the box, Killer Instinct, NFL Blitz, Parrot, quite a few of the games with Parrot, all run flawlessly as emulation should, right out of the box.
Yeah, see, that's
right out of the box, no tinkering. I loaded up Big Box, CoinOps, Hyperspin. What else is there? Retrobat loaded up there. Carnival ran just fine.
That's a tough one that can chug along too if it's not properly emulated.
Right, and because it's a x86 environment, runs everything just fine. Raspberry Pi 5, Orange Pi 5 still has hiccups regardless of how powerful it is. So, anyways, you guys know I did a lot of homework, a lot of studying and research to find out where the heck is the bottleneck. Like when we have the Orange Pi, I was like, we have more than enough power. I don't want to
Yeah.
sit here and spin my wheels. I'm not gonna sit up here, tinker and turn this up and overclock this and overclock that. But just keep in mind, everybody who you always see overclock. In fact, let me pull this back up here on the screen.
That's it. You just want it to work, you know?
I
It's like you don't
right,
want to be
well,
messing with all these different emulation settings.
and I don't mind the tinkering part, but it's like, what are we tinkering? Where's the bottleneck and where's the
Yeah.
hiccup? And so, with this particular score, to know that you can have a device that's 2 or 3 times more powerful than x86, and you have x86 still emulating correctly, that's not the issue. And so, I think that's why I made a few videos about misleading single board computer reviews and what we're getting for our money. It's because we're paying more money, and the instant performance and instant gratification isn't there. In fact, you could go get the Atomic Pi, which is less powerful than a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and it will emulate Killer Instinct, for example, just fine. So the power is not the issue; it's optimization and it's the environment.
Yeah.
So we'll get into
Well,
this a little bit more, but I just want you guys to see those numbers in comparison to how this is.
Well, a good example too, if you look at, just consoles, for example, you got the Xbox Series X versus the PlayStation 5. Xbox Series X on paper is more powerful than the PlayStation 5, yet graphics seem to be indistinguishable. In fact, there's a lot of games that perform better on the PlayStation 5. So yeah, it comes down to, in many cases, it comes down simply to optimization.
Yeah, because I don't want to spin everybody's wheels because I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Every team comes out with their own front end, like, hey, this will work. They don't show you all the bad stuff. They just show you all the good stuff to make it look clean. And then you have another review like, hey, they didn't show this and that, and the sound is off, or it's running too fast, or this is glitching, or the game is crashing because we're spinning our wheels. We're paying a little bit more. We think the power is there, and it is there from a hardware perspective, but it's not there from an environment perspective in getting emulation. And the issue is some of these emulators are not optimized for ARM. They're not.
Yeah.
And until that changes, until that fix, we're always going to run into the same issue. And the reason why I like comparing the Orange Pi 5 to the Raspberry Pi 5 is because it has 8 cores. Obviously, the GPU from what I saw earlier today was much better. And you're still going to run into these issues, regardless of how much tinkering you do and how much little add-ons. I know the Pi 5, Raspberry Pi community is big. It's, diverse. It can add some tinkering, but how do you justify all of that? And then you grab something like this and it's perfect right out of the box.
Yeah.
So Bad Player says manpower has always been more important than processing power. I definitely agree. Definitely agree.
Totally.
So,
I mean, none of these single board computers would be where they were where they are today if it wasn't for the community and developers. I mean, look at the strides you've made working in the community. Some of your builds. I still think your Venom build is probably one of the best, if not the best, build that's out there.
Yeah, and for those of you guys watching, that's definitely made by the Supreme team. They put in a lot of work, a lot of time optimizing the marquee scripts. I know Wolfenose also added some things in there too, some codes to make some of the emulators, run right. But but even then, I'll tell you this: as much work as we've put into the Pi 4 testing, it's still capable of doing more. We haven't seen the full capability of the Pi 3B Plus or the Pi 4 because if any of these emulators are optimized to run in a ARM environment, as they should, you would be able to run Killer Instinct and NFL Blitz and Current Evil as they should, because they're more powerful than the Atomic Pi. But because it's an x86, and the other ones aren't, the ARM, the Pi devices, they're not going to be optimized enough to run it. So even as all that time, and I don't think I'll put that much time into Venom build or another image like that again, we still haven't seen the full effect of what we could truly have.
Well, I think I've seen a lot of people in the chat talking about the Ad Games products. And I mean, that's a perfect example too of another product that's put out there. The potential of that by Out Games has not even come close to tapping into what those boards are capable of. I mean, the community themselves have taken on their own projects behind the scenes and have gotten emulators to run on there, that far surpass anything that At Games has put out as an actual public product that you can purchase licensed games for.
Right.
So, again, it comes down to development, it comes down to support. I mean, Pi 5, they're sure Raspberry, they're just putting out the product and they're going to rely on the community to be able to push it. But it's like anything else. There's so many of these boards out there. We're talking about, the Orange Pi. There's not a lot of development compared to the Pi community out there. And so, yeah, it's made some
Right.
strides, but as you start to get more and more of these boards out there, various boards, it's a problem. Whereas you go back, you look at, like you're talking about, like the mini PC, it's
Yeah.
x86 based, right? It's going to be pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, sure, there are different powerful units across the gambit, but you for the most part know what you're getting when you buy it. It's ready to rock and roll when you take it out of the box. It's more plug and play than some of these single board computers. Now, don't get me wrong, the single board computers certainly have their place. There's a lot of projects where you benefit with the size, of the board itself, or versatility of the board that you can't get in some regards with a mini PC. So
Right.
they do have their place, but I think for retro gaming, yeah, I think the future is really starting to seriously shift. I mean, even just seeing out there, all the YouTube videos, it's really taken a shift towards mini
Yeah.
PC, and especially within the last 6 months.
Yeah, it's really hit hard. I mean, I've seen most of the content creators now, all they're doing is posting videos
Yeah,
on mini PCs. You haven't really seen that before. Normally it's been single board computers, but I think the biggest part of it is, obviously we're going to tinker. There's going to be a number of us that still buy
yeah,
so many different, Raspberry Pi devices or different devices. But in the back of your head, as the costs start to mount up, you're going to start asking yourself questions like, what am I doing?
yeah,
What am I doing? I love to tinker. I know this is a hobby, but I'm paying the same price for a mini PC, single board computer. They got 6 or 7 other doodads like this X1 single board computer has the M.2 slot. It has all the ports you need. It even has a built-in microphone,
yeah,
and it has a headphone jack. Raspberry Pi, $80. No M.2. That's a separate $22. No headphone jack. No microphone. You got to buy the fan with the heatsink. Like, the costs are adding up. It's not starting to make sense. I'm putting more work into it. It's so those questions are going to start looming around here if the barometer keeps moving in the opposite direction.
yeah. And again, like we're talking about it. So I mean, with the costs going, and there's more companies every day. I was amazed when I looked on the Cyber Monday specials, just how many companies out there now,
Yeah,
companies I'd never heard of, making these mini PCs. And,
yeah,
the more I say, like the Chinese companies, whatever, I mean, because they can get the cost down. I mean, they're so inexpensive. I mean, some of these things for under $100, it was crazy.
and that's the frustrating part is, like, me, I'm a Raspberry Pi fan, but I was like, why am I letting a company hold on to my money
Yeah.
for 30, 60, 90 days, who knows how long?
Mhm.
And I see all these Black Friday promos
Yeah.
instantly in stock, can ship in the next few minutes and have
Yeah.
it at my door. And it does the same thing with less headaches.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and also too, I mean, the other thing that's really cool about it is, if you think about now, another big fad is where people are daisy chaining arcade cabinets for multiplayer. That's going to
Yeah.
be so much easier to do with an x86 based computer.
Well, and they're in stock. They're
And
in
even
stock.
even the
Yeah.
yeah, and even like these Dell Optiplexes, which are very popular. It's obviously a larger form factor, but those are in pretty good abundance on eBay and Amazon used, that aren't that much more or a similar
86,
price to Pi. Yeah, for the Pi,
86,
and it's still going to
$86.
outperform the Pi.
$86. I was
Yeah,
looking them up. I did the search on Amazon. I was like, Dell Optiplexes and some of the other computers, $86. No, they're the ugly ones. the
Right.
black
That's what
towers
I'm
or
saying. They're not
whatever.
the nice form factor that some of these smaller mini PC are, but again, they're inexpensive.
Wow. Yeah. Mr. Lord Beavis says AI AMD is working directly with some of these manufacturers to produce specific chiplet. I guess he means chipsets for their boards. Well, they're doing a mighty fine job of it, I must add. And
Yeah,
um, I think maybe that was probably some of the rush as to why the Pi Foundation released the Pi
I
5.
think so.
Be-
I think so. They wanted to beat the rush of all the other innovation coming with these mini PCs. And yeah, AMD, I think, and I've never personally been as big an AMD fan, but from what I've seen and the research I've done, they seem to have taken great strides with the mini PCs. In fact, like I kick myself. I wish I had bought the UM790 that Forum makes out. It's probably one of the best ones out there. It's one of the more expensive ones. I mean, you can
right.
buy a desktop computer for that price, but again, I just like that really small form factor. But they really made great strides, even I think more so than some of the Intel based ones that are out there.
Right. All right. So this is the mini PC that I picked up. This is
I'll have mine
the
tomorrow.
oh yeah. the Kamaru mini PC. I'll put it back in the box. I did open it a little bit just to check it out, but I mean it's simple. I mean it does what it needs to do. Came just like this. I took the power supply out just to already have it plugged in and stuff, but I mean it's lightweight. It's a nice. Well, you guys
Yeah.
can't see it. I'm sorry, but it's a nice form factor here. It was $127 plus I had a gift card, so it only cost me $80. For
Can't go
this.
wrong.
So this will run Technopare. This has the it's not the N5105. It's the N95 or the 95 chipset?
N95.
Yeah, so it has that one in here. So this one's slightly more powerful than the UE2 that is sitting. No, it's that one right there. Yeah, so slightly more powerful than that one, but right now that is my favorite single board computer, the X1, the UE2. But so we're going to get this one plugged in. From now on, like when I have other projects in the house, like if I need to, because typically I believe that every TV should have a computer hooked up to it because I have a lot of family and you all can't crowd around a computer during family time.
Yeah.
You have family photos and you want to catch up on old times. So I need something where I could display everything on my main screen where taking family vacations and stuff. I need to have it on my 65-inch TVs. So this will be my option now because I could tape it to the TV, hook it up. My wife wanted a computer. I mean, she has one, but she wanted something a little bit more up to date. But that was one of the things that made me get into the Raspberry Pi 5 was it was low form factor, low cost, power consumption. So now that I know this could do everything that I needed to do, gaming and whatnot, Microsoft Word, do a little bit of video editing, this will be my first choice that I go with. No, not this particular one, but just in general, we'll be going with the mini PCs.
Yeah, it's even great too if you want to even use those, because you can put in whatever size storage that you need with them. Use them for an inexpensive home media server.
Right. Let's see. Carl says, I'm watching the stream on a 10-year HP Z620 workstation. It's a beast. Love HPs. Bad player. It was our go-to brand at work. Oh, yeah. Like if you worked in the government, the county libraries and stuff like that, it really is. Triple X. Thanks for joining. What debate is it really to have? He says mini PC, by far. Now, of course, there's still applications and stuff that the Raspberry Pi can do with single board computers. But yeah, I mean, like I was talking to my cousin the other day. He manages a server farm. And he said he can't change out. He has a bunch of Raspberry Pi 2s. So he hasn't upgraded because he has to find out if everything can be integrated into everything that he's using can be integrated right now to the Pi 5. So he hasn't updated in over 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. So Glenn, what are some of the things you're looking forward to on your PC in terms of the capabilities and whatnot?
Well, for me, this latest one that I just purchased is I'm waiting for the GRS Sinden shotgun to come out because what I'm going to do is just put a Batacera build on it and it's plug and play, right? So you don't have to worry about that. I mean, Sinden doesn't play too nice with Pi. I know you're the expert when it comes to all things light guns, but it's with what is it, Battlestar 38, it's just plug and play. You just plug the gun in, it's ready to go. So I mean, I have a nicer, I have the UM690, which I have more gaming things like that set into it. But this is just going to be a small project that I'm going to put into a cabinet, use with the GRS shotgun, and it's just going to be its own little standalone thing. And I mean, it's
Right.
plenty of power to be able to run it.
Right. Yeah, it's. I mean, you're. We'll put it this way: if you got, let's see, if you, so the Orange Pi 5, the Raspberry Pi 5 can all run CoinOps, Techno Parrot, and several other front ends. Obviously, those are all based on ARM and Linux, which those programs typically aren't compatible for. But the power of the board is capable of doing that, but you're limited in that space. So you get something like the mini PC, which is x86 compatible, even if it had the same kind of specs or registered the same way as it would on Geekbench and some of the other tests, you're also missing out on that opportunity, that ability to run some of the other front ends and interfaces.
Right.
Let's see here. He's at Mr. Lord Beavis wants to know, what is Ascendant shotgun?
So yeah, GRS is going to be coming out with early next year. They haven't taken a pre-order on it yet. It's a light gun, and literally, I don't know if you've seen the arcade one-up Big Buck Hunter.
Yeah, I remember those.
It can be compatible with that. It will work with the arcade one-up Big Buck Hunter. I've tested it myself with Planamento. It's substantial. I mean, the thing is hefty.
Right.
It has force feedback in it, with rumble force feedback in it.
Wait,
Pump reload.
That pump reload and force feedback, is that better than the Senden recoil model, or is it a version of that, or is it modified to?
I haven't used the Sinden gun itself, but I know it will have various intensities, so you can adjust. You can turn it on and off. You can adjust the intensity on the force feedback on the gun as well.
Right.
I believe you can get it to work with the pump and also for shooting. I think it'll work with both of those. At least that's what Glenn was saying when they were doing the early firmware for it. But they've been working with Andy Sinden, and there's actually a new version of the camera that's being used with this to make sure it was compatible with devices like Raspberry Pi, with PC, with the arcade one-up. Now, it won't work with like T2. It won't work with the Time Crisis because they're using different types of programming in those cabinets, but it will definitely work with the arcade one-up Big Buck Hunter, and I believe it will even come out of the box with the adapter if you own one of those and you can use it with it. But that'll be something that's coming early next year. But anyway, Sinden is, I mean, again, Gun for IR or Sinden, both of those can be used, with a mini PC. Obviously it can be used with a single board computer too, but it's certainly going to be more plug and play using it with a mini PC. Easier to set up.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Wolf and Nose, thanks for watching. Pi still has their usefulness, but the time for full emulation use for the game arena still has a ways to go. And he's definitely right. So back in 2020, I think I did a live stream video where we were showcasing the Supreme team added Vulkan drivers to the Pi 4. It was the very first time, so you could play it on RetroPie. The four of us did a live stream. It was me, one of the guys on Supreme Team. It was Wolf and Nose and Level 1 Online. And I remember Wolf and Nose kept saying it's not there yet, or I can't. Wolf and Nose, what was the saying you kept saying? You kept saying it's not there yet, or it's not ready, and that just kept echoing in my mind. I kept saying, like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, it's not there yet. And so there was also someone else told me that I asked, well, how come Killer Instinct runs at full speed on the Atomic Pi and it doesn't on the Pi 4? And all they told me was it was just a different environment. And I never really looked into it until just really a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago. And I found the answer. And the main answer was ARM versus x86. And that's when I found that UE2 X1 single board computer. I knew that was the board I needed to have. I knew that it was capable of running some of these more obscure games, where emulation on the Pi devices are spotty. Like, yeah, Dreamcast runs in full speed, but why not the N64? Why not Sega Saturn? Like, how does GameCube almost run at full speed, but we're still struggling with some of the other basic systems that came out 200 years before that device, just for example. So that was the main issue. And so there is a fix for it. I'm going to tell you guys what that fix is tonight. In order to get full speed capability, or as best as possible, on an ARM device. So the first fix is you have to load, it's still in development. The first fix is you have to load Windows 11, either Windows 10 or Windows 11. What that will allow you to do is run x86 applications on your single board computer. So you won't need to use Recalbox, RetroPie. You could use Retrobat, which runs natively on x86. You would be able to run CoinOps, Hyperspin, and some of the other environments because it's a Windows-based environment using the single board computer process to run the additional games. So all your basic applications will run. You've seen videos on this. You've seen where like ETA Prime and other people, you've used Twister OS, where you're able to run Box86 and use Wine to run basic PC applications. In those particular formats, which if you guys have watched some of my comments in some of the other groups and forums, I've said you're going to need more RAM for your single board computer. Reason that is because in some of these cases, and the second option is to run Twister OS as a full loaded front end. I think I'm in the beta program for that, for the Orange Pi, where they sent me some files or whatever to check out. And so with that, obviously, you're going to be running a native Windows application, a native Windows front end, and you're going to be running not Windows with Twister OS, but you'll be running Twister OS, and you'll be running emulation within emulation. So you'll be running Twister OS, which is being emulated on the system, and then you run your native Windows application on that. So that's why you'll need more memory. If you want to achieve the best full speed emulation possibility, those would be your only two options unless they fix this ARM optimization, which I don't foresee happening in the next 10 to 15 years.
And there's a comment in the chat from Carlo talking about the Glenn's Viper board, for the IR Arcade. Yeah, and that's something that's going to be coming soon. I know I was speaking to Glenn, and they're still working with development. They've been working closely with Team Encoder too. So that's a board that at launch, and they pushed it back, I think delayed it a little bit until early next year, I think is when it's going to come out, to make sure it's more optimized so it's going to work more seamlessly with the IR Arcade. And the plan is, of course, is to make it plug and play for GRS products. So
Right.
that's the first priority when that launches. But again, it's a perfect example where, an SBC does come into play when it's something specifically optimized, for the market or the intent, like the build decay that GRS has, the GRS products, being able to take something and out of the box, use it as intended. Now Glenn's gone an extra mile because of the demand is, part of the reason I think for the delay is to try and get a little bit next level and support some things above and beyond what the initial intent would be. But
Right.
that's going to come with support from the community ultimately to, people, like yourselves, people like Wolf and so to be able to get those things in play. But yeah, I mean, I think that, like we're saying, they do have their place, but
Right.
it's really going to come down to competitive pricing moving in the future. As these things, as the pricing shifts towards lowering for the mini PCs. I mean, at a point, like you and I were talking about earlier, is there's the development cost, right? Those are part of the things that drives these costs higher. I mean, you do look at somebody like Glenn. I don't know how he's able to keep the company afloat because he's not about the almighty dollar. He is releasing products at a very inexpensive price. I mean, like the
Right.
iCarry Warrior stick he just put out for $80. I have one of those things, and considering all the accessories and things that comes with it and what it does, I don't know how and he's not really making any money on this stuff, but the same can't be said for other companies where you look at the pie, the prices are driven higher because there are more development costs behind some of these products.
Right.
And that's something I think that Glenn's finding now as as he works on the Viper to try and get a lot of these things that people are asking for that were never really intended. It is incurring a lot more development time and cost on his and
Right. Right.
he
Right.
is unwilling to kind of pass on to the community because that's how Glenn is. But in general, with the cost of these single board computers, when you look at again like Raspberry versus mini PC, that's not really there's not going to be that kind of
Yeah. I think too, people
difference
kind
in
of
price.
yeah, I think people forget that there is a cost of development,
Yeah,
aside from this. So when I make the argument in this particular case, like we may look at, oh, the Raspberry Pi 5 is, $80 plus all the additional accessories, and it almost comes up to the same price versus the mini PCs, like say 127 to 150, for example. Uh, I'm also factoring in development. There's going to be hundreds and thousands of hours for a single board computer into development. Now, mentally, the one thing that I always encourage all of my subscribers to do and people in my Facebook group, mentally, when you're working on a hobby, I want you to pay yourself $20 to $25 an hour. Now, how long did it take you to do that? And then you pay yourself. If you start to go over that threshold, you'll start to see what the cost of that hobby or that project is. Was it really worth it to do it? I mean, obviously, we all tinker. We love just messing around with stuff. But if you start factoring in that cost, like for example, we put a price on, let's say, the Orange Pi 5, for example, the build, $9,000. People don't see that. All they see is I bought a single board computer for 127 and give me something right now that works. Whereas us, who are actually putting in some of the work, putting things out there, I'm looking at this single board computer, I mean the mini PC, and I'm like, well, shit, it's ready to go. I don't have to sweat. I don't have to think. I plug it in, it does what it's supposed to do. Whereas if you're getting the, any Raspberry Pi, Orange Pi, whatever the case might be, you're not buying it to enjoy some type of instant gratification. For the most part, there's going to be months of work put into that labor of love to get it to where that instant $127 mini PC is just going to give you instantly. And I don't think customers or people really see any of that. All they see is the product they bought and where can I download the next thing to make this work.
Yeah, and to Wolfedo's note, he has a comment in there. Isn't the Viper board locked down though? That shouldn't have been a thing, really and honestly. So my understanding and speaking with Glenn, I know initially the original conception, before the Viper board was even announced, was originally was conceived as something that was going to be a board that you could put in the build decay because especially because Raspberry Pis weren't really readily available, and of course
Right.
now they're starting to become more available again. But to be able to put it in the build decay, be able to run off main based ROMs on the build decade, and then there was the partnership with iArcade, and one of the things that you'd be able to do is get additional functionality on the iArcade using the panel, so it would be able to add on abilities that you didn't have, and especially that became a much better value once iArcade went out of business.
Right.
But as the development proceeded, as it got closer to launch line, he started getting a lot more feedback. Well, what about Dreamcast? What about PlayStation 1? And so the board is capable of doing those things. It's a matter of like anything else. There's the development time to
Right.
push
Right.
it
Right.
beyond what those original expectations were. And that's really where he is now. So they do have Dreamcast running on it. They do have PS1 running on it right now. But a lot of that is also going to come up to the community to put out builds like we've seen with Venom, with Kio's Venom build, things like that, because I mean, as a company, it's like At Games, right? At Games can
Right.
put out the product, you can play your own ROMs on it, but they can't put the ROMs out there. GRS can't do the same thing.
Right. Right. Right.
So he's really working at the point now to make sure that it exceeds original expectations and can do some of the things that people are asking above and beyond what was originally anticipated, so that there are bigger and better builds that hopefully at launch might be available. So he's working with a lot of the people behind the scenes with in the community to get that ready. So and the nuts and net result is it's locked and loaded for its original intent. Now he's kind of pushing that above and beyond to try and go that extra mile, if you will.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that might help Glenn, I think, kind of going back to the Windows ARM situation, I think Windows 11 and Windows 10 for ARM is going to be the savior for a lot of these single board computers, because it's going to allow you to run your PC applications natively, which will totally wipe out the Linux, Debian, Ubuntu type distribution for those kind of things. People have something they're familiar with. It uses the full aspect of the board. I know right now, I think the GPU is limited for the Windows 10, Windows 11, for some of these single board computers like the Orange Pi. Some of the USB drivers don't work or USB ports don't work by default. However, it will work. I mean, it does work eventually. But I think that would single-handedly be the biggest savior for a lot of these single board computers that need development. So you load the Windows 10 or 11 because it emulates or it runs x86 natively, but it just uses the power of the board. So if you're a single board computer manufacturer, you're looking into that. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. Instead of having to spend a whole lot of time on what it is you're trying to do, that's where the direction is going to go in. And I'm glad I found that out several months ago, because I was like, man, how can I just boot up directly? And then you'll be able to use whatever front end you want. You're not limited directly to, let's say, Linux distribution stuff for your single board computer. Let's see here. Triple X says, respectfully, Keo, I'm not sure I agree with you. It will be the savior of SBCs. Well, in terms of limited development, a lot of these single board computers just put out something and they don't have a decent OS or they don't have decent drivers. So if you have a Windows operating system running on it, which could use the hardware of the board and native drivers, I mean, obviously, I think most people probably stick to maybe one or two single board computers that they're familiar with, but you won't be buying a single board computer and saying, okay, is there any development for this? Is something going to boot? And you'll find that out a lot with a lot of these single board computers. So if you're able to just load a standard OS that you're familiar with, that's going to be a great help to a lot of these companies.
And Wolfino says, I think it's unfair to depend on the community to improve what should be coming out of the box. In all fairness, people do complain enough with what they get for free from personal experiences. Just to kind of add some clarity to that. So out of the box, and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Glenn, but out of the box, from what I've seen, is the intent is you'll be able to add your own main-based ROMs to it, and it'll work. The basic OS is going to be there in play. What I'm talking about in terms of community support is that, Glenn can't put out a build like a CoinOps style build. So those are kind of things that somebody else could put out there where it makes it easy, where somebody just downloads it, puts it on there, it's ready to play. We've all seen these things. You can go to Arcade Punks. There's a million of these things that you can get, whether single board computer, PC, or whatnot. So that's what I'm talking about. But so, yeah, out of the box, there's certainly still a certain amount of know-how, either installing a pre-built build on there or putting your own ROMs on it, but it will work out of the box. Not like here's the board and now you have to do everything from scratch. It'll have a basic OS on it that you can add ROMs and just start playing with it immediately.
Yeah, I definitely understand where Wolfinos is coming from. He says it's unfair to depend on the community to improve what should be coming out of the box. In all fairness, people do complain enough with what they get for free from personal experience. And, that's even a generic term. I have, there's a lot of people, even companies that are even, so, I mean, obviously we know what's going on with, the home arcade community where, they release stuff and they still rely on the community to, fix their stuff or add driver support or provide some type of optimization, or, companies not even getting proper licenses for emulators so they can resell it. So yeah, I totally get, where he's coming from. And that's not just single board computers. That's even hardware too. I mean, there's been a ton of accessories that have been sold, and people said, "Oh, it's just a community-based project. Go out there and figure it out and report
Right.
back to us."
And I do know that Glenn is looking into, and I don't know if there's anything concrete, but I do know, I mean, obviously there's Robbie Roto is on there, but I think he is looking into or was exploring working with some licensing partners about the potential of having some other games on there at launch. So I wouldn't rule anything out. I mean, Glenn never ceases to amaze me.
Right. Yeah, he definitely puts out some good products. I have his trackball, his flight stick. There was something else he sent, and he sent the Builder K2. Oh yeah, his spinner. So those
Yep.
will be, those are all working pretty good. So I mean, like his trackball is really nice, especially the
Oh
one that
yeah,
was
yeah.
RGB. I was disappointed I couldn't put it into my Atari Fight Stick. Man, I was really disappointed about that.
Well, I mean, it's even you talk about the innovation. I mean, like I said, I got the Ikari Warrior stick, and I have to laugh because I can't tell you how many reviews people are complaining like, oh, it comes, I got to use the cardboard box. I'm like, come on, guys. He put a packaging. You don't have to use the packaging, but the fact that it comes with a box
right.
that you could use to turn into a controller is just an added bonus. But people are complaining. It's like, oh, I got to use the box. I'm like, no. I mean, what other company is sending out stuff at that kind of I mean, I look at this product and I said to Glenn, I said, and I buy all this products. You know, I'm not getting this stuff for free because I
Right,
want to
right, right.
support them just like everybody else. And I said to him, man, I would have gladly paid 150 to 200 bucks for this stick because the quality is like commercial grade quality. It comes with, a free spinning top, an 8-way top, a 12-way top, 16-way top, 6 buttons, a box that you can actually assemble everything in there, wiring if you want to hook it up to an encoder. I mean, for $80,
Right.
so I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think is pretty wild. And so look, I'm really hoping that, even though there's a competitiveness out there with single board computers, I want to see the Viper succeed. I think it does have its place, in the ecosystem. And we'll see how everything plays out.
Definitely. And just so you guys know, this on the left, this is a screenshot, or actually I have it live right now. This is the Raspberry Pi 5. I was just doing a little bit of cloud gaming on the desktop just to kind of get a idea about how this would perform next to the Orange Pi 5. So just to let the cat out of the bag, I'll have some more reviews upon this. I got a ton of reviews coming. But so far, from my testing, and I tested this for about 20 minutes, this had a bigger performance hit compared to the Orange Pi 5. So I mean that the Orange Pi 5 in a desktop environment, cloud gaming, it seemed to perform better than the Raspberry Pi 5 because I had a few glitches, stuttering, and hiccups. It plays smoothly for the most part, but when there were times when I was playing Ninja Turtles where it just kind of had some slowdown. And I'll include that in the next upcoming video, but I did manage to record that. You guys will see it. And everything here is in the same working fashion, meaning when I do my comparison test, whether it was wired, wireless, I keep everything the same controller, same keyboard, same spot, same location, just to try to maintain some type of consistency. So you guys will see that. So just from playing it for about 20 minutes or so, there were things I encountered that I had not experienced on the Orange Pi 5. But it was pretty fun, though. It was really fun.
I'm still impressed with the UE2. Yeah, the fact that what that board packs onto it is for the price is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Speaking of which, let me pull that back up because I got some clips.
I remember when I first saw your video and I did a double take. I'm like, wait, it has a built-in microphone. Like, it's just the amount of stuff that they packed onto that board.
It's like they just dumped everything on here. In fact, they got one of those.
Much everything but the kitchen sink.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it has a SD slot, M.2. It has the NVMe for your wireless connection, 4 USB ports, your Ethernet, a couple of PoEs, UAR2 connections, and it stays pretty cool too. I mean, man, it's like they just threw everything at it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I think I got some video clips I wanted to share here. I'm not sure if I recorded it this way. It was probably on my cell phone, but let me see if this is a video. Anyway, I got Techno Parrot running on here, so I was pretty happy about that. A lot of the
What kind of frame rate are you getting on that?
it was perfect.
Really?
I mean, not all the games like so. For example, Rambo wouldn't play. I said I needed a dedicated GPU for that.
Yeah.
Rabbit's Revenge. I can't think of that Rabbit game that was stuttering. So a lot of the games will work. So the reason why I mentioned that is because when I talked to a lot of the guys in the community, I asked, "Hey, what can the X1 run? I mean, what can with Techno Parrot? What are the actual specs?" Oh, that's actually the Batacera video. I'm sorry. I said, what are the specs? What is the minimal PC you can get that will run Techno Parrot? And nobody really knew. You know, it was like you had to have a 1660 video card in order to run Techno Parrot. And so, as far as I know now, the cheapest PC that you can get is $100, the X1 UE2 that will run some of these Techno Parrot based games.
Wow.
And that's pretty remarkable because I didn't know. I looked around. You know, it's not like some of these PC specs. You know how you go to Steam or pick up some of the old PC games and it said you got to have 2 gigs of RAM. You got to have this processor or higher. I didn't see any of that for Techno Parrot. So this was just, I wouldn't say blind luck. Just plug it in, see what you can emulate up to. And I had Alien Extermination running at full speed.
That's pretty impressive.
And what else was there? It was Alien Extermination and the Transformers game. Let me see if I have that video. Let's see if I can pull it up for you guys. Let's see here, because I'm sure most of you guys, if you guys saw my community video where I posted it online, I was really taken aback to see that it was. Let's see, is this it? Is that it? I think we got it. All right, I think this is it here. Yeah, I think I got the volume off. So yeah, this was my pure excitement just hearing that Transformers was running off of the X1. Because I had no idea. You know, it was just plug it in. Let's see. And again, keep in mind, this board does not have as much power as the Orange Pi 5 or the Raspberry Pi 5. So I was just ecstatic to see this. And I played it. So it wasn't just demo mode. I actually played the game. Now, again, I love giving you guys clear disclosure. About after 30 minutes, it crashed. So I don't know if that's something that I did wrong or if it was just game error. I'll have to further test this. But this is great news to know that you could boot up on a $100 mini PC, single board computer, and get this kind of performance. So when you're able to run Windows 11 on your Raspberry Pi 5, now it hasn't been updated yet, or the Orange Pi 5, you will be able to play Techno Parrot based games with this performance or better.
Wow.
And there's me playing now. So I actually have I couldn't move around, have to go through the settings, but that is me actually playing.
Yeah, it looks pretty good frame rate.
Yeah, it was a great frame rate. I mean, I'm not complaining. I mean, if it was just crappy, I wouldn't have even shown it or even posted the video because I just would have been like, well, this isn't even playable. I mean, if it's playable, then yeah, I'm gonna post a video. If it's not, I'm just there's no reason to show anything, you know. So I only like showing things that I know you could pick it up and start playing for yourself if it's reasonable. If it's not, if it's hiccuping, if the sound is off, then it's just a waste of time because we don't have time for that kind of stuff. There's too many other things that we can get that's much better that'll give us exactly what we want. Now, if I had Linux loaded on here, I'm not sure if Techno Parrot runs on Linux, but obviously with Windows being a system resource hog, then you would get better performance from a Linux-based application or a Linux-based environment using x86. Let me see. I got the volume. Oh, you guys can't hear it because I don't have it fed into the system. But yeah, it ran great. I mean, no complaints, nothing to fuss about. I mean, it was just like an added benefit. So I don't know if there's any other single board computer videos that are out there that shows you what is the cheapest system you can have that would run some type of Techno Parrot based game.
Yeah, not that I've seen. In fact, I wasn't even familiar with this brand until I saw your video.
Let's
Seemed
see.
like that one just kind of came out of nowhere.
Which one? The X1?
The UE2.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I didn't even know it was coming too. I mean, because I've been pretty much up on all the stuff that's out there through different content creators, and like I said, first time I even heard about the board was when I saw your video.
Right. So this is Rabbit's Revenge. Ran like crap. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It ran like crap, but it ran. It's on. It was definitely really sluggish. So this is one of the games that would be far beyond what the X1 can handle. It can run it, but it runs it really slow. And you can see it's really choppy, it's laggy, it's slow, but it boots. So you have certain games like you have to go through each one, test which one would be optimal for that type of single board computer and get the performance that you want. But it did boot. This one is far beyond what the board can handle. And you could play like your Transformers and your Aliens Extermination video. So, and I think I have another one. I want to see if I have is this one here, the 3 minute here. And the resources weren't maxed out either when I was playing. Oh yeah, I think Pie Maniac, this is the one you were talking about when I was playing. Oh, let me see here. Got the wrong video up. Oops, let me see here. Trying to pull up the perfect layout. So, Pie Maniac, I think you were talking about this one when I was really excited when Alien Extermination actually launched on here. And it wasn't choppy. It was full speed, playable. I'll fast forward it a little bit just so you guys could see it. And there you have it. I mean, it was running perfectly. I'll upload that video for you guys too. I'll include it in the next one because, I don't like to sound too serious on all my videos, but this was just a clip when I do a lot of testing, before putting up a video because I like to have my information and stuff on point, make sure I test different scenarios to provide you guys some accurate information. A lot of my excitement and stuff is usually in the background. That's not in the prepare, but this was just a totally raw thing. I just happened to record and was like, well, let's just see if it runs. And I was really happy. For $127, same price as everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
So Glenn, any thoughts? Like, where do you see yourself going from here?
I mean, mini PC for sure. I mean, I already have a couple of projects in mind. I mean, I definitely have a plan for the Viper board when it comes. But as far as it goes, I mean, I think most of my modding projects are going to be around mini PC. It's just, just because of what I need. I'm using more modern games.
Right.
And it's just a lot of these single board computers won't do that. I mean, they're great for just basic retro stuff. If you're looking for the old stuff, then by all means,
Right.
But if you want, if you want some of the more modern stuff, as soon as you get past Dreamcast and PlayStation 2, you really need to go to a mini PC for the best, performance or regular PC for that matter.
Well, I think that the thing too is what I would refer to as spotty emulation. So PS1 runs better than 3DO, but 3DO is old as crap. N64 doesn't run that well, but Dreamcast does.
Well, look at Jaguar's hit or miss too.
Right, and PlayStation 2 emulation now runs better on the Pi devices than N64. So, and then you also have different games that are in between. So it's not like a straightforward process where I know like NES is going to work, Super Nintendo Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast. That'll all work
Yeah.
on PC or a single board computer. I don't even have to touch or even look at the other systems. But how do we
Right.
get in a situation where this one works, this one doesn't, this game
Yeah.
doesn't work, this one's missing the sound, this one's missing graphics in the background? Yeah, Jaguar too. Jaguar is another one that runs on the Orange Pi 5. It should run on the Raspberry Pi 5. But again, that was harder to emulate than not Sega,
Sega
Dreamcast.
Saturn. Well, yeah, Sega Saturn's another one too.
Yeah.
It's hit or
So
miss depending on what you're running it on. But I do find though, I have, as I started to experiment with some of these mini PCs, I do find too that the AMD versus the Intel based ones, there are some things that run better on AMD than they do on Intel or vice versa. So I'm finding that's interesting too.
yeah, that'll always be the case with
Yeah.
AMD, just in terms of processors. But we're just talking about like even just some of the basic emulation form
Right.
factors that we've seen. That'll always be the story with those particular chips, because every chip is going to process things a lot better. And then I remember back in the day, the AMD used to get more points than Intel, but
Yeah.
AMD, when they would do those tests, is they would include integrated graphics. And
Right.
so
Right.
they would get higher points, whereas Intel would release a great chip, but it had shoddy integrated graphics because it was intended to be used with the dedicated graphics card. So it didn't matter. So the points or those scores back in the day, back in like the mid 2000s, they were skewed because of that. So
Yeah. I think ultimately what it comes down to is, for the end user is, I wouldn't say forget about the power, forget about this, but like you're saying with emulation is really think about what are you going to use it for?
right,
What kind of games do you want to play? And maybe if there's specifically some specific games that you want to play, those are the points to research
right,
and find then the most affordable or the best product that's going to fit your needs. Because I mean, at this point, there isn't, short of going to an actual full blown PC, there really isn't one size fits all. Whether it's SBC or even on the mini PCs, it really is going to come down to do your homework on what are you intending to use it for, and find the best solution specifically for your intent. If you want something that plays everything,
right.
then honestly, if a form factor isn't the restricting thing for it, your best bet is, spend a couple $100 extra and get maybe a mini PC, a mini PC or mid tower PC that's going to be able to play everything, if that's what you're looking to do. If you want just retro games, everything up to a Dreamcast or PlayStation 1, then yeah, single board computer's fine.
Yeah, I think that, and I definitely agree with that. I just think the only thing is with the costs are going up. Like when this was Raspberry Pi 2, Pi 3, it was just like
Yeah.
$25. Who cares? I'll just go in the store, grab something. I mean, if I can run Atari, fine. If I can run PlayStation, who cares? As long as I get my Atari games and NES games, we're good. We're good. But like the other thing that I just consider now, like with the Raspberry Pi 5, is who is it really marketed to?
Yeah.
27-watt processor. Like, are we video editing or are we high-end gaming? Like, what else
Right.
are we really using that power for? Who is it garnered to? I still don't really know what uses that amount of power to run it. Now, I would see
Yeah.
that if I was video editing, Adobe After Effects, something that is a little bit more power hungry. But if it's not tailored for gamers to play PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, then what basic applications are we using for that additional cost that's going to require us to pay that kind of money or justify that cost to?
Yeah. And it feels like it is tailored towards the higher end gamer, but at that point, to me, it doesn't make sense with the cost of mini PCs being, right on the neck and neck.
Right. So
Yeah,
only
Wolfeno's right. Yeah, it comes down to what you're looking for. Do your research and just buy the best product that's going to fit your needs. In the case of, obviously you're looking for something that's really small form factor or tiny. SBC might be something that's better equipped for your needs. But I mean, even look at the UE2, how small that is.
Yeah. Oh, I love this UE too. And again, now you really have to do your homework. Now you have to
Yeah.
know what it is you're looking for with the cost going up. Back in the day, if you say, "Oh, go get a Pi for emulation," Okay, $25, $35, who cares?
Right.
Go get a pie. Just the arcade modders will just slap a pie in it. Who cares if some of these
Yeah.
other systems don't work? It's who cares? But now the price is going up. Now it has to be justified. Everything needs to work. Killer Instinct better work.
And I
NFL
and I
Blitz better run.
I think the other thing too is for somebody that isn't super tech savvy too, if you're doing your homework too, is I caution, and no disrespect to anybody in particular or anything like that, but I do caution that I think you need to do your due diligence and do a little more research on content creators, because I think there are a lot of content creators out there that don't have the necessary background, and they'll just put stuff up there
No, Lord.
without really showing what the performance gains are, or what the performance differences are from product to product, and so you're not really getting the true picture of what you're buying.
Oh yeah, don't get me started. I don't even want to go. We'd be on here for another 3 hours talking about some of those subject matters. But I think that people should stay well within their limitations, or at least bring some other educated people on that may know about those things. I don't know if it's a pride issue, but it doesn't hurt to ask people, bring them on your show,
Yeah.
talk about things that you're not familiar with, get some additional insight, do some research, show some templates or some graphs that kind of better explain your picture, but not just put your stuff on there. Because there was a guy, I can't think of his name. He's posted a lot of Raspberry Pi 5 emulation. He has 200 subscribers, and he said the exact same things that I said in private. Well, not even private, I don't care, but a lot of things about manipulated videos that have shown you one thing. And he said it. He's like, how come these content creators show you one thing, but then I have it? And why aren't they pointing these issues out? And after a while, it makes you start to wonder, how is it that people aren't stupid? None of these content creators are stupid. How can people release a video, show emulation on some of these single board computers, and they're around? You can say, hey, how come this looks a little differently? They're not pointing it out. It's like it's just totally flossed over. And then you, the end user, you get it. And then you're like, well, gee, this is not what I saw. This is not what I was expecting. I thought I was getting X, Y, and Z. The emulation was fast, but they were showing emulation on a desktop. And here I am using a gaming front end, and I'm only getting 3 frames per second.
Or the flip side of the coin, which I have to laugh about, and I can't say, I mean, there's so many of these I'm seeing crop up all over the place from content creators, is they'll show the higher end mini PCs, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 ones.
Yeah.
And they're showing NES on it. They're showing Sega Genesis. Okay, show me what it can really do. So I'm interested. Maybe I want to buy one of these higher end ones. I really want to see how can I push the envelope. And they're showing NES games. I'm like, come on, really?
Well, like kind of what I was doing here with the UE2X1 is I'm showing you
the kind of stuff I want to see.
The full capability of how far can you push it. And even I know some of the videos you're talking about.
Yeah,
they never showed any.
Show me frame rate too. I want to see something. I want to know what's the frame rate. What? Yeah, it's not hard to add the frame rate when you're showing the emulator. I want to see what it's capable of. What am I buying?
Yeah, exactly. Like this, the X1 here is probably the most affordable, cheapest single board computers, x86 NS class, that you guys have probably seen on YouTube run some of the more demanding techno-parrot type games. Even if it was stuttering, you at least have some type of margin as to what this thing can do. And then these mini PC reviews, which would register somewhere around maybe 1,600 or whatever on Geekbench or whatever, you don't see any of that.
Right. And I laugh. I'm like, they're putting their hand over fist sent from all these different companies, expecting they'll get reviews. It's like, yeah, it works great with NES, but okay, show me what it can do. And that's why I was astounded when I saw your UE2 and I'm like, whoa! I'm like, this thing's running. And I remember sending you a private message. I'm like, did I see that? Is that Techno Parrot?
Yes, it is.
I don't see any other videos out there that's showing that kind of stuff, that's really pushing, at least that I've seen, it's really showing how far some of these things can push the envelope. It seems to be the same cookie cutter Batacera build that they're downloading from Arcade Punk, slapping it on there like, look, it can run this. But I'm like, none of those builds really have anything that's cutting edge. It shows the performance.
Right.
It's capable of.
Or at least put Adobe After Effects on there, or
Right.
Adobe Premiere, and show me the rendering time in 4K.
But that
Show me
would
the
require too much work. They can't
yeah
turn out another 50 videos in the same day.
yeah just
So,
upload or show us Adobe Premiere rendering a 10-minute video, and how long would that take in comparison to something else.
right.
That would be another, great test. But, I'm appalled at some of the mini PC videos that I have seen out there. There was one I came across. It was $600. I think it was marked down to like $300 or $350. Looked like a great item, but the only problem is it had a huge bottleneck. And that bottleneck was that it had a great processor, but the processor didn't match. It didn't have a dedicated graphics card. So you're paying too much money, whereas if you got something that was $200 or $150, it would do the exact same thing, because that mini PC isn't going to have any bottlenecks. 16 gigs of RAM with was it Ryzen 5 or whatever the case might be, that's overkill for a lot of the stuff if you're not going to have a dedicated graphics card to go along with it for the $600-700 price range. It's great, but you could go get a fully loaded desktop computer with a dedicated graphics card that's going to run those things. So, for example, some of those units probably wouldn't be able to play Rambo on Technoparrot, for example, because it needs a dedicated graphics card. So you're going to have all this power, but no dedicated graphics to run some of the more higher intensive applications. And so that's a huge bottleneck, and it's a problem. I would say that to any company, like, hey, you're charging $700 for this mini PC, has a great processor in here, but there's no dedicated video.
Yeah.
Can we watch it run Time Crisis 3 in a desktop window, but not in a real life application? You sure could. You could watch my channel if you subscribe, Wolfenos. I got plenty of videos of Time Crisis 3 running from a gaming front end at full speed. So yeah, we don't run anything from a desktop environment over here, because that's not what you're gonna buy. Nobody loads up. I mean, I don't know, Glenn, do you load up desktop and say, man, I can't wait to get my single board computer and I'm gonna run everything from and then you experience a 70% hit when you actually have a gaming front end loaded on it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh man.
All right, Glenn, you got anything left to? We know Wolfenos, so we were,
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to playing around with some of these the mini PCs. I mean, now it's my go-to thing. It's like it used to be. It's like, well, Black Friday, every Black Friday, I'll pick up an extra storage drives. I'm like, I could see me now. It's like, well, next sale, I'll pick up another mini PC. I could, I'll end up having stacks of these things around me for all different projects. But I mean, it's just so much more user friendly. I there's so many limited number of hours in the day that I have. It's like I don't have the time to start futzing around with stuff like I used to. I just want it to work.
Right.
It's got to the point where I was spending more time futzing around with stuff and less time playing. At the end of the time, end of the day, I just want to start playing more. And I think that's the advantage of some of these things. It's like, it just makes it overall much easier. And with the price point now, it seems to be a no-brainer.
Yeah, definitely. So just some key takeaways from this live stream. You got the video footage that you're watching right now is from the UE2X1 single board computer running native x86 applications. This board is not as powerful as a Pi 4 or as a Raspberry Pi 5 or the Orange Pi 5. But when Windows 11 comes out, you should be able to run this application. And you would be able to take advantage of the power that it has. So if you needed to have an idea about what a board can do or can't do, this is a great indication of what your single board computer should be able to do within the same price range and also performance specs.
Has there been any talk about what that kind of time frame is?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not No, I have to take a look at it again. This past week, that's pretty much all I was doing is I was just
Yeah.
going deep, like x86 emulation. And I had thought about integrating it months ago onto the Orange Pi, but I was like, oh, screw it, that's not going to work. It's ARM, so it's just going to have ARM, just ARM environment. So I was like, screw it. That was, I had this great idea, wanted to put it on the Orange Pi, but then I revisited it a few weeks ago, and I was like, wait a minute, it is actually going to work because it does see x86 applications.
Right.
So only time will tell. I'm a test man. It should work. On paper, it looks great. The GPU and everything, it should take full advantage of it, but it should. I'm 90% sure that it should work. And this will eliminate all of the emulation problems, concerns. Drivers don't work. This is spotty. N64 doesn't work, but PlayStation does. This would be a momentous occasion for the retro.
Although with that running as a front end, though, what kind of expected performance that you think you'd take on that?
Well, when you're running Windows 11, it's the Windows 11 environment. It wouldn't be like Twister OS, where Twister OS is running and then you're running emulation within emulation. It would be the native desktop.
Okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, all these games, these front ends, this is what you would typically, expect. So hopefully when we get there, I can't wait to see it. I'm still testing. I still need to load my Orange Pi up and get that to where it needs to be. I know there's some hiccups with the USB drivers and whatnot, but when it gets up there to where it needs to be, it's going to be a complete beast.
What do you think the future is for the Orange Pi 5 compared to the Pi 5? Do you think ultimately, just because there's such a big community support for Raspberry, that's eventually going to still overtake Orange Pi 5?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there's better dedicated video drivers, better community support. I mean, it's Raspberry Pi. I mean, mostly all these companies, they got their name from, as far as I know, got their name from Raspberry Pi. They just kind of, followed up on that. Again, the video footage that you are looking at is from the X1 UE2. So, yes, I am running Killer Instinct full speed, as you can see, and there's no hiccups or any glitches with it, and it's not as powerful as the Orange Pi or the Raspberry Pi 5. But no, the Raspberry Pi 5 is still going to do its thing. I'm not saying they're going to go bankrupt or anything like that.
Oh, no.
But for as far as the retro gaming perspective and what other people may do in terms of creating programs, it's going to cause people to shop around and see what they're getting for their money in terms of performance and everything else. So,
do you see yourself personally shifting now more to mini PC after you've started to work with mini PCs more and getting away from SBCs?
Well, I'm gonna still work with SBCs. Like the UE2 X1 is an SBC.
Well, I mean, for personal use, do you see yourself migrating more to mini PC over SBC?
Primarily because, like I said, back in the day, I mean, when I went to waterproof my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, 3B, my Raspberry Pi 4, I was like, oh, who cares? It's 80, $50, $30. I'll just dump this in, my solution and waterproof it, have some fun with it. So from a cost perspective, I'm like, I don't know. Should I just pay $80 just to make a video and prove that I can just waterproof this just like anything else? But it's just that, you have all these, options, and it's just something to consider when you have, these things are, with these costs just, going up and all the little add-ons. I don't see myself buying 10 of them like I did before, because before I went out and bought a bunch of Raspberry Pis, shipped them out, got some laying around the house. Some of them are still in the boxes, as we speak. I would do that for the UE2 X1 or a mini PC compared to some of these other single board computers coming out with their costs. Because the costs are down now. I mean, my wife, family, to take this to my parents' house, hook this up, because my parents are older. They're not really tech savvy. So if they just need it, they don't like using the smart TVs because you got to navigate around and all, but they know how to use a keyboard. So they can pick up the keyboard, turn this on, navigate to Windows, open up a browser, watch something on YouTube. Real easy, real low profile. I wouldn't give a Pi device. Heck, I wouldn't even give them my X1 for that because, it's a small device, but they'd be a little bit more familiar with turning on a PC on and off. And so those would make great stocking stuffers. So if I was doing a 10 unit giveaway right now, would I prefer to give away 10 Raspberry Pi units, or would I give away 10 mini PCs? Which one would you prefer, the mini
Yeah.
PC or a Raspberry
Mini
Pi?
PC.
Right. So I think from that aspect, I would be spending more time and money investing in something like that.
Yeah. Makes sense. My cat agrees too.
Wolf and Nose is like game console fanboys in some cases, but people need to look at alternatives with the cost now for sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about cost. If that's pretty much been the kind of the topic, the main theme of the conversation with the cost to performance ratio. We still love to tinker. Pi Maniac here. He's been saying the same thing that I've been saying. He's been really helping me out with the PlayStation 2 emulation and some of the other tests for the UE2X1 single board computer. But we're realistic. We have these single board computers, and we're talking about it because we've worked on them, developed on them, made images, tested this stuff, and this is just a flat out honest truth. That the time has really come for people to really consider their options, knowing that cost on one item is going up and cost on another item is coming down.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn. Well, any final thoughts before we close it out? I mean, it's been a nice conversation. Anything
Yeah,
else
no,
you wanna add?
thank you for having me. I think it's going to be really interesting what 2024 has coming. I think this is just the beginning. We've seen a surge with mini PCs the end of this year, and it'll be interesting to see once the Pi 5 gets out into more people's hands, what they can really do with it. But so, hey, look, I think if anything, whether it's price or not, competition drives, innovation.
Right.
So we'll see what happens, between all these bills that are coming out, different types of products that are coming out. I think we're going to see a floodgate in 2024 of new products.
Well, I know that the Pi Foundation better get with it, because in
Yeah,
early 2024, people
they need
still
to get them
are.
out, or they're
Yeah,
going to lose the battle real quick.
yeah, they better get them out. And I know people who are still fans of the whole situation, but there are a lot of frustrated people
Yeah,
who are in these groups, and they're like, look, like, where's my stuff? I mean, I paid for it.
yeah,
I still don't have it. When's batch number one? I was in batch number 1 or 2. They still don't have any. And I know, as far as I know, they really haven't been shipping out a lot of 8 gigabyte models. I know Micro Center hasn't gotten any. They've only had.
yeah. That's what I had on order, was the 8 gig one. And originally it was saying it was October, then November, and then then I just got another email, and I'm like, all right, well, now it's done.
Yeah. So, yeah. And, I commented and left Pi Hut a message on their Twitter. And I was like, look, why don't you guys change your listing instead of pre-order? Why don't you put back order to
Right.
give some people some type of reasonable expectation that you're
Yeah.
not pre-ordering it, is already available on the market, but yet you're making it seem like people are getting something in advance. And if you
Right.
put back order, it tells that people that you haven't fulfilled your orders and you don't know when you're getting them in. So I don't think they like that. They're going to sit up there and do their own thing, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Well, I see a lot of the sites are doing that, or they'll
Yeah.
just have it as sold out and they won't take any more pre-orders, which is honestly, that's the thing they should be doing.
Right. I appreciate that. Put back ordered or sold out for the time being, but don't put
Yeah.
pre-order. So when am I expected to get it?
Yep. Yep. Well, and that's one thing. I mean, you talk about company, obviously it's not single board computers, but you would talk about a company I think that's been transparent that I do appreciate is At Games. When they're with their ALP 4K, they've been pretty transparent. Okay, this is how many we have to sell. This is how many is in batch 1. This is
Right.
when they'll be shipping. They've been incredibly transparent. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that could take a note from the way they've been conducting business. I mean, Arcade One Up for certainly didn't do it. I mean, it's still questionable with iArcade that's out of business how many units they ever really had out there.
Right.
But yeah, I think more companies, especially when there's a product that's just in demand, needs to be more transparent, or you're going to piss off your community.
Yeah, because people are going to say, because like even in my case, I was like, all right, well, I got 2 Pi 4 8 gigabytes on order. And then I posted some links, and then a couple of YouTubers, some of the guys I know, they went and bought them from Parallax. I was pissed Because I'm like, I ordered mine 45 minutes after launch, and then here people are ordering them 3 weeks later and getting them 2 days after that. And here I am still, waiting. And so should I cancel my pre-order when I would have had a better opportunity just to possibly go into a micro center and just grab one? But I personally think the release has been botched. That's my opinion. It could have been handled differently, but that's where we are right now, and hopefully they learn something from it.
And by the way, before we sign off, I have to give a shout out to Wolfenos because it was because of his involvement in the community. It was the very first, the main reason why I started going down the whole rabbit hole with single board computers. So
Right.
yeah, got me excited about single board computers.
Yeah, definitely. And we want to make sure before we close out, I want to thank my wife for being patient and kind. And then also all of you who are in, all of the devs who are in the retro gaming scene that work on single board computers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your time and effort is not forgotten. I know the list is too long to go down, but we do not forget those who are behind the scenes actually making it happen. We never want to forget that. We want to make sure that I don't care how many people put up YouTube videos. They got 1 million subscribers. We know the people in the background who don't have any sub counts, staying up for 3 or 4 days straight trying to get this stuff to work. Those are the true heroes. Those are the people.
Those are the true content creators.
Yeah, those are the ones who actually know what they're doing and talking about. Like Pie Maniac over there, he knows what he's doing, but he only has like what? Pie Maniac, how many subscribers you have? But he knows what he's doing. He has this stuff. In fact, he had the X1 UE2 X1 before I did and knew exactly what it could do before I even saw that ad from Ameridroid. So thank you guys for everybody watching. You guys aren't forgotten. All you people who've been watching and never chime in, you're not forgotten. So thank you for watching the stream tonight. Please share the video. I think this video was helpful, informative, to get some insight for some content creators and people who were not paid shills. We have honest opinions. I don't care whatever the heck I get in the future, even now. We're just going to tell it like it is because we don't. You're not doing anybody any justice by lying to people or shilling, so to speak. So, all right, fellas, you guys all have a great night. We'll catch you later.
All right. Good night.
All right. Bye, guys.